The part of a road redistricting.
Good morning, everyone.
They provide services.
Is the
Need help, they'll
October
help you.
2022 meeting of the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission. We'll call the meeting to order. As usual, before we begin our session, we'll review the options for public comment. So if you are joining by a computer, tablet, or smartphone, you should select the raise option. If you're calling in by phone, you need to either email Landmark at Denver or email Landmark. We don't have any phone anyway, so so we'll skip that. And then, of course, we have folks here. So, do you want to go over the audio tips? Yes, I do. Yes. So for our audio tips, for those who are listening in or recording by computer, make sure that you for unmute by clicking on your microphone icon. Do that by expanding the menu next to the microphone and reveal additional options if you're still having trouble. Select your devices. It will allow you to test your microphone and your speakers to make sure that the volume is turned up or turned down. And you can always switch to your phone for audio if you have issues. They can also or chat.
Yeah, I think the thing that we've heard the most, and I should probably switch the slide around, I'll do that for the next one, is that people attending in virtually they can hear every time we, click on our keyboards and move our papers around and move our chairs and stuff like that, and the air conditioning and all that. So if you're having a hard time hearing, we encourage you to download Zoom on your computer or tablet or whatever, and add a background noise suppression. So that's the bottom option there. And we hear that works fantastically. So that's your best option. I will switch it around.
All right. I think, Jen covered that last item. So then we can move on to introductions. So I will ask each commissioner to provide their name and position that they serve on the commission. Now that we're in person, we can just go around the table and start.
Andy Duckinenke, Preservation Architect. John McIntyre, Commissioner at Large.
Fred Blick, property owner.
Jane Chrysler, Chair and Preservation Architect.
Heather Vasquez Johnson, Practicing Architect.
Tom Sala, general contractor. Steve Grader, resident.
And I'm Jen Capetta on staff. I don't count. I don't vote.
So, our agenda is, I need to do this, it's not on the agenda. On this agenda. Right, very good. So, yeah, before we move into design review, we'll ask if there are any comments or questions on the September 8th, 2022. No comments or questions. Someone would like to make the motion.
Sure, I move to approve the meeting record for September 8, 2022.
Can you guys speak up?
Second.
Thank you.
Third, fourth.
Fred for the motion and Jim for the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we do not have any consent agenda items today, so we can move right on to our design review agenda. So again, just a few items to review. This process, we will begin by having staff making a presentation, which is followed by questions from any commissioners. Applicants will have up to 10 minutes, or in the case of infill construction, 15 minutes to make a presentation, either virtually or at the table here. Following that, commissioners will have an opportunity to ask any questions of the presenter. After that concludes, members of the public are welcome to comment for up to 2 minutes each. And again, if you're joining virtually, you can select the hand raise option in order to do that. At this point, if there are any staff clarifications, those will be offered, and then we'll go into deliberation by the commissioners. So, our first item is 2022 COA 435, 1630 16th Street, and 1621 Street. Can you move out at all? Yes, there we go. I clicked it. So our first application is for 2 historical markers within the Lower Downtown Historic District. They are to commemorate and recognize the history of Denver's Chinatown, which was located in the Lower Downtown Historic District in the late 1800s. 2 of the markers are within the district boundary, and there is a third that this project is part of that is outside of the district boundary. There will also be a mural associated with this commemoration of Chinatown. However, I think right now it's going to be located outside of the boundary, although there have been discussions about its specific location. So we'll be looking at marker A and B. So marker A is located at 1530 16th Street, and marker B is located at 1621 Street. So the proposed markers are 7 feet tall. They have integrated LED light fixture at the top. They're constructed out of steel with a wood finish. They will have printed graphics with a map and logos and information regarding the marker. There's also a sidewalk component that is a black stained sidewalk element. All the sidewalks where this will be applied are non-historic, not original historic materials. We'll have rail on it and is an integrated marker. Both of the markers will be located adjacent to the buildings. However, they will not be directly on the buildings, and they will be located in a visible location but won't obstruct the public sidewalk. So this is marker A. This is commemoration of Chinatown in Denver, which is from the late 1890s, and really the population of Denver's Chinatown reached an all-time low in the 1940s of just 100 persons. And the reason for that is due to a race riot that marker B will commemorate. So A is just general history on Denver's Chinatown, and again, that is located at 1530 16th Street, which is where illegal geeks formerly used to be located. And you can see that it will just be located right at the corner of the building, close to the alley, and again, not touching the building. And then marker B is located at 1620 Wazee Street. This is to recognize the location of where Denver's race riot began against the Chinese population on October 31st, 1880. So this marker will be located adjacent to the building, will not obstruct the sidewalk, and will have that black sidewalk component to it as well. And then the final marker, I just have this in here for informational purposes, but this is outside of the Lower Downtown Commission's purview, not within the district boundary. It is located adjacent to the Denver Fire Station, and it commemorates the lynching of Luke Young. And I do believe this is where the mural will also be placed. Again, that is still in discussion. So in terms of evaluating the historical markers, I use the streetscape guidelines for Lower Downtown. And there are some things about interpretive signage, and the interpretive signage guidelines indicate that
Markers should commemorate historic important events. So these markers will commemorate and acknowledge Denver's Chinatown, of which little building fabric remains today. The markers will acknowledge Denver's Chinese community, who contributed to important events that made Denver what it is today. And then I also use the public art guidelines, and while historical markers are not public art in the traditional sense, they do enhance the environment, they heighten the awareness of the landscape, and they are for the collective community. The markers are constructed out of durable materials, steel and teak wood with aluminum letters and printed graphics. The placement of the art complements the surrounding environment, is minimal in impact, and is human scale. And they are freestanding and will not obstruct the storefronts or the pedestrian path. So staff are recommending approval of markers A and B in front of 1530 16th Street and 1621 Street.
Questions for Brittany from you?
I assume these are coated or otherwise settled with anti-graffiti.
I can't hear you,
I
sorry.
assume these are coated or otherwise epoxied or something with anti-graffiti materials.
I believe that's the intent, but that's a great question for the applicant.
Okay.
How is the lighting provided? Is that solar panel?
I do believe it's solar panel.
And stain, what do they use for staining concrete?
That's a great question for the applicant.
Okay.
For two, something.
This may also be a question for the applicant, but ultimately it's responsible for
The question for the applicant, for sure.
to invite the applicant to unmute themselves, or are we all?
Yeah, they're both virtual. Yeah, so it's Ben and Joey, and they just birthday just over.
So, hi Ben. Good
morning.
See your name. So just to let you know, you will have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation. And feel free to respond to any of the questions that you just heard, but it's not required. We can follow up afterwards. And just please state your name and address for the record, and go ahead.
Thanks, folks, for having us today. You said state your name and what was the second one?
Your address.
Address. So my name is Joey Ha, and my address is 2550 South Perry Street, 80219.
So I'm not sharing, hold on a second, I'm gonna pause this because we can see, or you guys can't see the timer, but I can on my computer, and that does not help anyone. So let's change that to sharing the screen. Hold on, there we go. I'm gonna reset that. So go ahead.
Okay, we actually do have a slide deck, if you don't mind us sharing screen, and we can keep an eye on our time too.
Yeah, we can't do a shared screen, unfortunately. It's just here. So I'm sorry. I didn't know you guys had a slide.
Okay. Well, Brittany actually put a lot of our slides already in your slide deck. So that's actually really great to have Brittany help us work with this particular project. So in our presentation, we wanted to share a bit more about the history of the Chinatown and the onus for these markers. And then after that, I'll hand it over to Ben to talk a bit more about the detail of the installation. Though also, like I mentioned, Brittany already did a really wonderful job giving a background and giving an overview of what we're looking to install. We're from the group called Colorado Asian Pacific United. Ben, did you want to start with your name and address too?
Oh, sure. Yes. My name is Ben Niamtet. The address is 3241 South Elm Street, Denver, Colorado, 80222.
Thanks, Ben. So just a bit about our organization. We're a newly formed nonprofit, and our goal really is to memorialize Asian American Pacific Islander histories in Colorado that are often unheard of. And one of the things that is unheard of in our state and in our city is the fact that we used to have a Chinatown. This news is not very common. This is not taught in our history books. And even within the Asian American Pacific Islander community, not a lot of people know about it. And if you walk through lower downtown today, there really isn't much existence or evidence of a Chinatown ever existing. So the Chinatown was around in the late 1800s. It was on Wazi from 14th to 17th. That was the main part of it. And it was very vibrant. There were a lot of different stores. There were a lot of businesses, and it truly was this ethnic enclave that a lot of folks felt comfortable living in. And a lot of the people that lived in this area actually came after the completion of the Intercontinental Railroad. And they had completed the railroad and moved to Denver and tried to make their lives there. However, there was a very large anti-Chinese movement throughout the United States in the late 1800s. And on October 31st in 1880, there was an anti-Chinese race riot. A mob had descended upon the Chinatown. They attacked and destroyed all of the businesses. They brutalized the Chinese people there, and they lynched a man who was called Look Young. And unfortunately, after this, the damages were never repaid, and then justice wasn't served to the murderers of Look Young. In fact, this anti-Chinese race riot was used as an onus, an example for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1880, which is the first and still remains the only legislation or immigration legislation based on race. So again, when you walk through lower downtown today, there isn't much history that you can really see with your eyes. And so this project really is in a way for us to metaphorically and physically reclaim a bit of this space. We have hit a lot of different milestones ever since our incorporation. We've worked really closely with the Office of Storytelling in the city of Denver for an I Am Denver documentary called Reclaiming Denver's Chinatown. And this is really exciting. It's premiering on the Denver Film Festival. We also worked very closely with the Office of the Mayor to receive an official apology from the city of Denver and to also commemorate October 31st as official Chinatown Memorial Day. We've received a ton of national and local news coverage, and we were also able to remove a plaque that talks a bit about the Chinatown, but did so in a disparaging way. We've partnered with a ton of different folks with the Downtown Denver Partnership and their leadership program, the mayor's office, like I mentioned, Denver District 9 Councilwoman Candy Sidibaka, the Lodo District Incorporated, I Am Denver, History Colorado, Denver Arts and Venues, and a ton of other Asian American Pacific Islander organizations. So we're really excited for this opportunity to partner with you and to present this project to you that we've been working on now for a couple of years. It's funded by a grant from the Andrew Mellon Foundation. And a lot of the work that's being done in the design is done by Ben, who is our board member and also architect. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Ben to give a bit more details about the actual installation of it.
Thank you, Joey. I believe there's quite a few questions in regarding the fabrications of this markers. The marker is made of either steel panel or aluminum panels that would be either powder coated or painted. Right now, we can still going through the design development process with the fabricators to accomplish the best and more sustainable and long-lasting, low-maintenance kind of solutions to the then the panel. There's a center of the panels. It is we're hoping, still investigating on that too as well, but we're hoping to use a real teak wood that is more sustainable as well as the low maintenance. But there's some, limitation as well in terms of the fading after the starting to patina during the UV, that it will eventually turn gray. So we have to plan ahead of that in terms of the stuff that's going to be onto the panel itself to make sure that it still be contrast and legible. The foundation is a caisson foundations that will be, bored down to about 3 feet deep, 3 foot deep, and elevated about 4 to, I guess from the front is a 4 inches. That's just for the snow removal. Kind of away from the just shovels, things like that. What else? Yes, we do have a solar panel for the lighting source. The solar panel is going to be on top, a very small unit, and like a 12-volt low voltage. The batteries packed and all that stuff is going to be in the back of the panels, set behind the panel itself. The marker is going to be set about 6 inches away from the building so that we can stay clear from the original structure. So we don't want to, cause any damage to it. So, and we will have a stained concrete stained to existing sidewalk concrete, kind of in the black stripe there with the logo on it, just to kind of get people to, because people tend to look down when they're walking. So it's kind of give them like a little a note for them to pay attention. I'm not sure any other questions that y'all may have.
Ben and Joe, I think let's do a couple questions, Fred.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Thank you very much. Full project. Some details that I wanted to ask about. One is that I note that the site on 16th Street from the existing conditions photos looks like you're going outboard of the fence, but I do also note that some of the photos show planters there. Have you guys coordinated with that property owner around that being there? Is that a conversation that's already happened?
Yeah, we're in a conversation with the building owner. I think at first I thought the conversation was like the planter has been removed, but then when I went to the site, it's still there. But we'll work with them in terms of because this planter slash railings it's I don't believe it's bolted down. Or perhaps maybe it can move slightly to the right hand side from the photo here, so that will give enough space for us to locate the markers. Yes, we'll talk with them on that. But I thought originally they was going to remove the railing.
So you also wanted to follow. You talked about, I think, applying stain to the existing sidewalks. Is that what you said about the dark panel on the sidewalk? Okay. I note that at this location, you don't actually have concrete as a condition. It's a sandstone paving as part of the mall. So I'm not quite sure what the plan is there. You hope to sustain the stone?
It's something we. I'm not sure what the final design of the material is. I thought sandstone was no longer used, but however, regardless, it's a sandstone or a concrete. I think the sandstone still can be stained as well. So that's something we need to work with the Lodo. I'm sorry, I forgot the name. Partnership downtown Denver partnership to figure this out.
Somebody said.
No, but this is outside of the area that's being renovated, so.
I don't know that they can hear you all, you're mumbling.
This is,
So we're just clarifying if it was new paving going down in this area or not.
this is outside of the area that's being renovated, because that stops at Market Street, so. Okay, I have some comments, but I'll save those for comments. Thank you.
I really appreciate your efforts here. I think this is some history that I didn't know a lot about, and I will educate myself to it. The bolting down to a caisson you mentioned for the vertical element there. I would question about how that ever stays in place, being that tall and leveraged off the bottom if you hit the top of it. And overall, who's going to maintain this on a annual basis going forward?
Joey, can you answer that?
Yeah, so Ben can talk about like the structure a bit more, but we are working with fabricators that will be able to give us a very good idea of what we need to do in order to make sure that it's stable and we'll be able to be strong throughout the years. And then we are working also to put together this permitting through Dottie, and we're working pretty closely with Dottie. And then to our understanding, the maintenance will be a shared responsibility between us and the property owners. So the general easy like cleaning maintenance might fall on the property owners. For more structural things, like if a particular component falls apart or needs to be replaced, if the text is coming off, then that's something that would fall into our purview.
So, and to answer your constructabilities in terms of the stiffness, the back, I'm sorry, the markers. Yes, the markers itself on the back, the steel plates that looks, our intent is to make it look narrow and profile as possible. However, we're going to have a stiffers. It's an L bracket stiffers on the back. There's two L stiffer on the back that is going to help stabilize this vertical panels. Yes, we're working with the structural engineers to ensure that. Does that answer your question, sir?
All right, that's fine for now. Thank you. A couple of quick questions, which I had asked earlier regarding anti-graffiti and scratching and that sort of thing. What will you be using as materials or the like to handle those issues?
So yes, we are planning to use the anti-graffiti spray coating to cover that. I don't have specific products at this point yet to identify, so we're working with the fabricator to look at those options.
And how about scratching or knifing or things like that?
Yeah, that's something. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, we don't. Another option we're looking at too, instead of using a real wood with teak that we're looking is perhaps go into the laminated route. With the aluminum's materials and with the some sort of film laminations for exterior applications. But I don't have the solution in terms of scratchings to that. But that's a hard one to prevent.
Because we sadly have had some episodes like that on signs in the lower downtown area. So it's something which probably have to look at, regrettably.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might add that RTD may be a source there because they have quite a few compounds that are used on glass on buses and on other things, benches and that sort of thing. So they've got quite a program, anti-graffiti, anti-scratching, and so on. Might be useful.
More comment than a question. I haven't found anything effectively used to stain concrete or shown. I would suggest you do an inlay of some sort, depending on what their paving surface is there. It will show wear very quickly.
It's something we're aware of that, to do it layers onto the existing concrete or pavers is a bit challenging in terms of, it's two different materials. It's going to it's going to react differently between, the weather-wise. So it's, if it's not big enough or deep enough, it's going to pop out. So that's why we suggest to go to the lower, more sustainable in terms of just to sustain the concrete, just kind of lower maintenance, and then we can redo them over and over, I guess, because it's the easiest solutions in terms of if they start to fade it away or scratch stuff. So that's our suggestions, but we're working with the concrete, what's called the silver stainers. Lack of the word here. Concrete stainer to help us with the best solutions on that.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much, Ben and Joey. If we do have any other questions, we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Do we know if we have any public?
There are members of the public here, so go ahead.
Yeah, is there anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment on that?
You can use your hand raise button at the bottom of your screen, or no one's on phone. That's it. Nope. So no hands raised. Because of that, I'm gonna stop sharing so that everyone in the public can see. I'm gonna turn this camera off, and I'm gonna move Ben and Joey back to attendees. So here we go.
Thanks for your time.
So, and we can enter into our deliberations. Right.
Hi, I think this is a great project. I have some concerns that it is perhaps not, from a design standpoint, totally ready for approval, as they're still debating some of the materials, and I'm not sure that we can, technically, that we can really approve it when it's still in design, it feels like. A couple of specific comments to echo what's been said. I think that there is a real issue with staining. An applied stain to concrete will wear off quickly. It's not a long-lasting solution, I think, to my experience. I think it's much better to look at just saw cutting a piece out and laying a new piece of concrete with integral color in the concrete. But at the same time, on the 16th Street Mall, I'm not at all clear what the solution is there where you've got flagstone. I don't think that an applied stain of some kind to the flagstone is necessarily a long-term sustainable solution. I'm not sure, given all of the people who have their hands on the 16th Street Mall from a control standpoint, what the process would be to look at cutting some of that out. One of the suggestions I'd like to throw out there for the applicant to consider is I wonder if rotating that 16th Street Mall piece to the alley edge might make more sense. It's still incredibly visible, and you have concrete there, and you don't have a potential conflict with the property owner's outdoor seating area, which I'm sure they're going to protect with great passion, particularly assuming that they have another restaurant tenant come in there. So it just doesn't feel like it's quite there on the materials and some of those questions, and I'm not sure if there's, I'm not sure if there's enough there to approve conditionally, or if it needs to come back. And I guess that is something that we can put out there.
Brittany's got her hand up about that.
So this project is very it requires a lot of coordination between us, Denver Arts and Venues, and Dottie. Denver Arts and Venues and Dottie won't look at it until we approve it. So that's why it's before you today.
But I also think you guys could do a conditional approval, if you have some conditions that could be brought back to staff, so it doesn't have to go back to you all. So
Okay.
it could be, that this may work, this would be acceptable, or this option, or things like that.
That's what I was going to suggest if you've got concerns about materials. Like, I think there was some concern brought up about the wood and how it would scratch or that kind of thing. I think that we could, in our testimony discussion, say that it could be wood, or it could be, with printed aluminum or something like that we're comfortable with, and let that go back to staff.
It could be, to more consistent with our guidelines, would be like a high quality durable material. Well, I shouldn't say high quality, a durable material.
Yeah.
Because teak tends to be durable, but if they end up going with a wood printed aluminum or something else, that could potentially qualify too.
Yeah. I share your concerns about the sandstone and limestone on the sidewalk a little bit, and had some questions about how much of that is, if it is or not included in the 16th Street Mall work, which we kind of run all of those things. I think the suggestion about the alley is intriguing, but my experience has been, especially in Loda, where we have historic buildings and the alleys are narrow and they cannot be wide. Doty and other agencies don't want anything else in those alleys that could, they don't want anything that might impact or reduce that alley width. And so my suspicion is that that wouldn't get past other agencies. And I agree, they have to work with the property owner on that patio, but that's not really our purview or our concern. So it's something that the applicant has to work out.
Comment, a couple. There are, as far as inlaying something into the horizontal surface there, pavers, you can consult with experts on that, who have that experience. And you can isolate materials from each other by caulking, setting in certain type of material. So I don't know what your budget is. That's not my concern so much, other than if you don't build it right to begin with, it will get expensive long run. So you need to look at it hard and accept some of the expensive nature of putting this in the public's purview. They will, and I would not put it in the alley anywhere. If there's a vehicle going down that alley,
It's going to get taken out.
There's a bollard right behind it is part of what I was looking at.
yeah, I saw that, but even that, they're rough in those alleys.
I've been at illegal pizza and then truck hit the building. It was terrifying.
There you go.
I do think it's appropriate that you see it more specifically in the photos towards the end of the packet that don't have the marker kind of overlaid, but there is a stripe in that sandstone that is a more regular rectangular kind of stripe before the stone's rotating into a diamond pattern. And it looks like, and I would encourage them that if that is going to be, that they're going to take anything out or they're going to modify anything to put in that sidewalk marker, that happens in that strip that's already kind of a border and already kind of a defining edge. It kind of blocks off the boundary of the alley and the sidewalk. And that seems like a logical place to work in an inlay, maybe modify the paper material a bit or something to get that sidewalk thereafter.
Maybe a couple of comments. So I'm very supportive of the of the concept. I think it's correct. Love the idea of markets like this, locations all feel good. I think the same response is really just to do with material quality and refinement and understanding that we are looking at the final version of the market. Just on the materiality standpoint, I would kind of commend the use of a material like the teak, something that has a kind of a natural solidity inherent to it. You can never, like everything, if somebody has a will to do so, is going to get damaged. And I'd be concerned about looking at things like printed aluminum, which are very soft, very scratchable, basically have to be replaced if which is an option, but it could be a lot of replacement. I would be more inclined, as you're looking at options, to try and look at something that has a stronger sense of durability to it. And maybe it's moving from a solid wood to a steel or some other thing that allows you to have a more durable surface rather than a soft surface. But personally, the idea of the kind of length and strength of the teak material is appealing to me, particularly in a memorial or a monument like this, which I think wants to have that kind of material quality and may, if it's converted into a sheet or a printed product, start to feel thin and sort of maybe less appropriate for a public setting. So I would just promote the idea of looking for as durable material as possible for that kind of piece of material that's held within the frame. And, personally, teak is used a lot in furniture, urban furniture, outdoor furniture, in environments like this. It has a kind of a natural ability to withstand a lot. So I think you might be on the right track there. Get yourself comfortable with the maintenance and the graffiti aspects of it. But I'm sort of in the same boat. I think that this is approvable in concept, but it's good to understand how we get to ensure the final review on materials. So in terms of final material selection, I also echo the idea of inlay. I think that an inlay, whether it's in a colored concrete or in something maybe more monument-like, that could be a black stone, it could be some other thing, particularly on the wall, where it's going into maybe a stone context. Maybe price implications of that, but ideas of good, high-quality inlay materials too, just to avoid the maintenance issues that you're going to come up with later, and also to ensure that the piece has the right kind of quality for the gravity of the situation and the kind of history that it's.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that the warmth of a natural material is significant for something like this, which is, as you say, a memorial needs to have a gravity to it. I think that's important. In terms of the maintenance, whatever material it is going to require some maintenance. The applicant mentioned talking with the partnership at one point, and frankly, I think trying to strike an agreement with the bid for the maintenance of this, which is, in terms of the bid's budget, probably a really minor thing, would be a route that I would suggest you look at, because the bid is there. They're doing a lot of this. They have staff. They have people on the mall all the time. I think that striking an agreement with the bid would be a win for everybody. It's great activation within the downtown area that I think the partnership ought to be very supportive of. And it just seems like a logical thing to me. And then it takes this burden off the nonprofit that is a small startup nonprofit. And I think gives some assurance to everybody that it's going to be taken care of in the right way long term.
I think that using the bid is an excellent thought. That's the kind of thing that makes a lot of sense. Bid probably is well aware of all of the maintenance materials that are available and what their properties are. They could be great help there. I would just as one thing I suggest. We had a problem with carving of bus benches in San Jose. They all get carved up. We found that Philippine mahogany is a wonderful material because it would break knife blades.
It's very hard to look for.
It's wonderful.
The one other small comment, just as you get into the final of this, is that I note that the piece on Wazee, and you talked about it being spaced about 6 inches off the building, is in front of brick building which has been painted. And that will be repainted at some point then. So unlike the piece on 16th, where there's unlikely to be major work done to that brick anytime in, the next 20 years, that brick is likely to get repainted. If there's not enough space between it and the building, the marker will get painted as well.
I'd also, Brittany's got a comment.
It was recently repainted. It's red in those photos, but it's black now in actuality. So
Yeah.
it was recently repainted.
But it'll get repainted again, and is I think, whatever color it is.
Yeah, I also suspect this is what I know of some of the downtown historic structures. The foundation tends to wedding cake a little bit. And depending on how deep the foundation is of these two buildings that they're going in front of, and how much of a wedding cake it is, they may find that they need to shift it a little bit further from the building, anyway, just to clear the structure.
Last comment from me is, I would suggest that you continue your research with materials and applications. Go to people that do this on a regular basis and get their critique on materials and applications and inlays and durability. If they're presently maintaining other surfaces like this in the public view, they will give you good advice on how you might do that best.
So I guess to me, the question is, are we, given what our purview is, our guidelines that strongly relate to materials, knowing the process that we need to go through, is this something that, what kind of motion do we want to entertain?
Can we do approval and concept can we do an approval in concept with final details yet to be determined coming back through that?
I was gonna ask the question if maybe the approach is a conditional approval that requires, final construction details once it clears all of the other agencies it has to clear. Either going back to staff if we're comfortable with that, or if we feel like we want to see those final construction details.
So conditions always go back to staff. So if you have a conditional approval, Brittany is the one who will review what those conditions are and that they've been met.
And if Brittany feels like it doesn't match the concept that was approved, she would bring it back to. Yes.
I'm quite comfortable with a conditional approval that sends final material review back to staff. I guess very confident, knowledgeable, and gets it. So crafting that.
I will try.
Great.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to conditionally approve application number 2022-COA-435 for the new historical markers at 1530 16th Street and 1620 Washington Street as per the design guidelines for lower downtown streetscape for interpretive signage and public art, character defining features for the lower downtown historic district, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report, with the condition that final material details and final construction details are returned to staff.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any extension? Great. Well, I'm happy to say that the motion passes unanimously. And thank you again to the applicants for your time. So our next design review item is 2022 COA 434 1300 Walnut Street, Bell Tower.
Sorry, just a second. Sorry. Take a moment. You missed stuff. Okay, Brittany, I like it.
So our next project is for the design details at 1300 Walnut Street, which is the bell tower site. The commission has previously reviewed the mass form and context for this project several times. Also had a discussion item on this project. So just as a reminder, this is actually located at the intersection of Spear, Market, and Larimer and Cherry Creek. It's a triangular site that you see highlighted here. And it is also associated with the site across the creek to the north. But we're just looking at the tower today.
Oh, you're good.
So the last time the commission reviewed the mass form and context for this project was on June 2nd. And the commission did approve that submittal at that time. Since that submittal, there have been very minor changes to the mass and scale that we'll look at as part of the design details. So on the left side of your screen, I have the June 2nd mass form and context, and then on the right side, it's the design details for each elevation. So right now we're looking at the Spear Boulevard elevation. So the significant changes here relate to the platform design. It's been further articulated with stepping and things of that nature, and the design has been further refined, as you can see in this elevation. And then there have been some minimal changes to the balconies on the left side of this elevation at the very top of the tower, and then refinement of the solid to void relationship on the this portion of the building, real slow, and then this portion of the building as well. So in terms of the cladding materials, this facade will be principally clad in a terracotta like material. It will have different patternings that we'll look at in more detail depending on where it's located on the building. And the very top of the building where the mechanical screen is will be stucco. There is glazing on this elevation as well, and the glazing colors vary slightly depending on if they're located at the building base or the top upper floors of the building. But we'll look at those in more detail and detailed elevations. So this is the Larimer Street elevation. This has had minimal changes to the plinth design that is in the triangular park portion, just refinement of that design. Fewer changes to the massing on this elevation. This will also be clad in the terracotta, but this is where the service corridor elevator is, which runs up the middle of the building, and that will be clad in stucco material. So right through the middle of the building is a stucco material. It will be painted with an integral color to match the terracotta cladding material that it is adjacent to. This is the Cherry Creek elevation. There have been the most refinement to the mass form and scale on this elevation. So principally at the top of the building, the massing has been recessed even further than in the prior submittal in this section here to further thin the massing. I don't have the perspective views in this submittal, but they are in your packet, which show that thinning of the massing a little more significantly. There have also been refinement of the solid to void relationships at the building base. So you can see that change down here at the building base. And then just some changes to the solid to void relationship in the service corridor area. And this has also had some refinement of the balcony design as well at the top of the building. So previously the balconies were recessed and now they're protected. Staff do feel like that's a pretty minimal change to the mass form and scale approval. And we didn't ask for this to come back for that second review on that mass, or third review on that mass form and context. This facade will be principally clad in terracotta material, with just the stucco at the very top of the building. And here is the Market Street elevation. This is the primary entrance into the building. The building has had some refinement to the solid to void relationship on this elevation as well. Principally in this area here on the building, you can see there are less windows than in the prior submittal. Staff don't feel like it was a significant change to the design, but it is a change in the solid to void relationship. And then same with this area up here at the top of the building, there's been refinement of that as well. More windows have been added to this portion of the building, but again, we don't feel like it was a significant change to the massing. And when we looked at the prior approvals, it is in line with some of the prior approvals to the June 2nd. So we didn't feel like it needed to return for additional mass context review. So this elevation will mostly be clad in that terracotta material, different applications and colors, depending on where it is on the building facade as well. So in terms of the terracotta material, this is it's manufactured by Boston Valley Terracotta. The building will have 3 colors, sand color, a limestone color, and a slate color, which you can see here in this material board. Additionally, it will have various applications from a smooth panel to a ribbed panel, and then down at the bottom of the building, what is called a baguette screen. So you can see that articulation of that terracotta material that will be used on the building, depending on specifically what part of the building is clad. In terms of the glazing, the ground floor will have this, in the Skybox lounge up at the top of the building, we'll have this clear glazing that you see here for the storefront. It is an aluminum storefront. And then the upper floor windows of the tower will have this slightly darker glazing, pretty similar in color, although E-glass, which is recommended by our design guidelines. And this is also an aluminum application as well. In terms of just details, there will be some metal copings and louvers and overhangs. It's just a black metal panel. And then at the building base on some of the canopies and other elements, you'll have this metal panel, which is in a kind of blue type finish that will be used at the building base. In terms of the railing around the buildings, they will also be glass railings and an aluminum construction. And then we'll have metal louvers. And then there will also be stone at the base of the building wrapping the columns. And then, as I mentioned, the top of the building where the mechanical screens are is a stucco material that will extend down the building facade on the elevator corridor side of the building. So I have some details so we can look at more specifically where all these materials will be used. So this is the entry of the building. This is along Market Street. So to help the building maintain a street edge, that baguette screen will come all the way down to the ground. So it will provide solidity to the building at the building base, but also keep it open and allow light and air to enter the building and that motor court that is proposed along Market Street. And then you will also have the ribbed paneling and the flat paneling as well above the very ground floor articulation of the building. So here are just some more perspective views of that and how that baguette screen will be used to help anchor the building and allow light and air to come into that motor court space and then articulate it up above and transition into that ribbed panel for what essentially is the building base of this design. You can see those metal coping materials. These renderings do show lighting, and we don't have a significant amount of details on the building lighting, so I am asking for that as part of our conditional approval. So I did just want to note that. This is the Promenade Elevation. It will principally have that ribbed panel on this elevation with some of the baguette screen. Again, still the building base, and then that glass glazing material as well, and the glass railing for the front design that is private outdoor space for the tower. This is the Promenade Elevation still, so we're still looking at the same thing with the baguette screen and the ribbed paneling and that glass railing that is proposed for that front area, and then that glass space that is also proposed for the corner of the building. This is the Market Sphere corridor. So this is has that ribbed panel. Here there is a metal screen that I have a better view of a little bit further down to what would be on the right side of the building that's kind of cut off in these renderings. But then here you have that transparent glazing, which allows for open views into Larimer and surrounding context, which is recommended by the design guidelines. This is that flip space that will be mostly glass clubhouse space here, and then the glass railing on that front space as well. This is the tower elevation. So again, the materials will vary depending on where they're used specifically and in terms of the colors. So you'll have the ridge panel and some of the flat panels. All the windows are inset into the wall opening, so you can see how that inset works there. With that ribbed paneling, there will be a metal coping detail around the windows, which further accentuates punch detailing in the windows, and then you just have various proportions here. And the glazing on the tower portion is going to be that slightly less visible light transparency. This is the upper Skybox lounge. So this glazing here on the Skybox lounge will match the glazing at the ground floor, which is slightly clearer glazing and articulation there. Same material application with that terracotta panel. And then this is just the rooftop mechanical. Again, this will be clad in a stucco, principally around this box area here. That will extend down the elevator corridor, and it will be painted with an integral color to match the adjacent terracotta material. So in terms of landscaping, the design guidelines do talk significantly about the triangle space here having a public park appearance, but it can have be private space. So the applicant is proposing some sod and some concrete pavers, and then there will be trees planted along the Promenade, Sphere Boulevard, and Market Street. So I do want to point out to the commission that previously some of the mechanical was oriented onto the Cherry Creek Promenade. That has now moved to Sphere Boulevard, which you can see here, and that will be screened with the metal screen. And I can show you what that metal screen looks like in just a second. So in terms of hardscaping materials, most of the spaces is going to be hardscaped around the motor court, the terrace area, and then the flipped triangle area here, which is a site triangle, which will remain open space that is paved. And then this portion of the property is going to be public park-like space that will be enclosed with a site wall, which the guidelines do say that the space is allowed to be enclosed as long as it maintains views and connection to the surrounding context. So I have all the details of those paving materials here. So this is the paving materials and landscaping materials that will be used in those hardscape places. Here you have a detail of what that garden wall will look like. So it is a brick wall. You can see that brick material here with a steel railing on top. So it is low in height, which will allow views into the space, but it will privately enclose that space. And then the mechanical screens that are now located on Sphere will be this metal panel material here. They're pretty minimal in scale and size when you look at the overall portions of the Sphere Boulevard elevation. And then the site lighting, which we do have details of, will match the existing site lighting that you see in Lower Downtown and Larimer Square. And then these are the bollards that are proposed in the motor court. So in terms of when we evaluated this against the design guidelines, the PUD states that for the tower massing, the landmark design guidelines, or sorry, the Lower Downtown design guidelines do not apply. So what we used to evaluate the materials was the 4th Special Review District design guidelines. And for the fourth special review district, the guidelines state that contemporary materials and details shall be permitted and they shall be reflective of the technology of their time. They may vary from historic materials and details as determined to be complementary and compatible with the context of the fourth special review district. And then contemporary materials and details of additions and new construction should be compatible and complementary to the existing historic features of the lower downtown as a whole. And contemporary details should utilize materials that reinforce the quality and integrity of the existing historic district. So staff felt that this terracotta material was a high quality material. It is a contemporary material of its time. The materials do vary from the historic materials, but they are compatible with more of the beige brick that you sometimes see in the lower downtown historic district, and some of that white terracotta materials that you see in the lower downtown historic district. We feel that the materials do have scaling elements that will further reinforce the contemporary design, but also relate to the composition of the brick cladding material within the lower downtown historic district. And all materials are high quality materials, and a minimal number of materials are proposed, which is typical of the lower downtown historic district, in which you see typically brick cladding as the primary material. We are using stone and metal here, which is also seen within the lower downtown historic district as accent materials. So in terms of the design details, staff are recommending conditional approval, and our conditions are very minimal, and that they relate to previously provided details on the building lighting as they are not recurring. So.
Any commissioners have questions for Brittany?
Sorry, I get stuck on things, but at the ground level, both on the Spear side and the Cherry Creek side, we have stairs that come down that lead to either the amenity deck or the terrace gardens. And I'm not quite clear on that. In some drawings, we appear to show some fences or gates, and some we don't. And the perspectives don't seem to show anything. So on page 19, the perspective rendering doesn't show that that stair has any kind of gating or anything. I saw it on maybe the landscape image. It did show something. And similarly, if we go down to page 21, we've got the stairs that go to the terrace gardens. And the perspective just shows all of that open. Is that actually, so is that getting that metal fence? I'm not quite clear on.
So my understanding is renderings were still in work as of up to yesterday, I think.
Okay.
So the renderings might not be entirely accurate. Generally speaking, when we stamp and approve plans, we're looking at what is in the site plans and elevation drawings in terms of what is reflective of the project.
Okay. So the elevations, though, don't show a site wall or fence on page 21. Maybe we should just, yeah, maybe we can talk it through with the applicant. I'm just a little confused on things where there's disparities between some of the details and some of the elevations. So I'll wait for the applicant.
Invite the applicant to make, a presentation. This will be a 15-minute.
Fix that. And the other question I have for you all is, I know that you have someone joining virtually. Are they presenting, or are you all presenting? How do you guys want to do this?
We're presenting here.
Great. Okay.
Landscape may weigh in on some of your questions about that. But other than that,
Okay.
And then when they have
A video, yeah, and that was the other question I was gonna have. When do you want me to do that? Is that while you're presenting, is that?
Probably at the end. I think we'd like to talk through some of the materials that you guys already seen and then just kind of cap it with an updated video so that everybody can just kind of watch it.
Great, and just let me know when you wanna advance on the screen for this and tell me when it's time to close the video.
And I will just ask that you state your name and your address. Go ahead and the floor for 15 minutes.
All right, Glenn Morganwick, principal at GDA Architects, 3090 Lewinsky Way, Dallas, Texas. Ray Day, GDA Architects, 3090 Lewinsky Way, Dallas. And I'll make my portion brief. Great to be here in person. We did it virtually last time, get to see everyone's faces, talk through all these good things that we're working on. And Paul, who actually was doing a lot of the presentation previously, is actually his wife's delivering a baby today, so we're here in his support of that. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Ray, and he's going to kind of walk through the presentation.
Again, I appreciate Brittany really did a good job elaborating, kind of presenting our project to the committee. One thing we do want to get iterated is what we did was last time we came, got to listen to all the things that are important to you guys, important to us, and we went back and started modifying things, just developing design. Some of them is structural based, some of them is programmatic, really how can we better the building. But then the whole time while we're making the minor changes, we keep having certain things that you guys talked about last time. How can we make sure the top is light? How can we make sure there's transparency at the right location, rich texture and things like that. So that slide is perfect there just for a quick look. You know, when we came to you present the first time, you see kind of the white model. You know, we talked about all these different datums that relate, you know, to the Lodo and also to the Aurora campus. So we took those spirits and started developing the materials and the programming that way. And on the right, you see the new palette. One of the reasons why we chose terracotta, it was something that, you know, kind of, again, going back to the whole concept of things. We wanted to design an iconic, timeless building as a gateway, as an icon, bridging, kind of marrying two neighborhoods, Lodo area and Aurora campus. How can we take some of the richness that we find in the Lodo district, brick texturing, the layering, and also some of the modernization, the contemporary design details, and kind of merge it so that it's a good blending that no one necessarily points at the building and go, oh, this was built, so, you know, exactly what time, what year. In the terracotta materials, we found a lot of, because it's a very earthly material, very human scale material, very natural material. The palette really kind of, like Brittany was saying, blends into the Lodo palette that we see. A few times we're here and walk around Lodo downtown to get good. We start kind of capturing some of the details that we see around town, the brick detailing and the accents around the windows, the projected window mullions, that, you know, new interpretation of some window details and things like that. And that's what you start seeing in our latest design. Do we have the presentation? This was the staff.
No.
Commission has your packet, so
Okay.
if you want to reference page.
Sure. Yeah, skip all these. Well, the page 5, that's kind of what we started, was basically showing a really quick diagram of the minor changes that Brittany had talked about that we felt actually improves the project a little bit. Materiality that we changed and some of the slight push and pull, again, help make the top a little bit lighter in certain spaces, pops out a little bit more to accentuate the building, really form more iconic gestures. And, you know, we're looking for design that adds a little bit more context to the neighborhood. And then from far away with the in and outs, with the different balcony forms, really gives you a iconic beacon and sort of gesture at the top that we're looking for. And the other plans from 7 to 10, really just showing the updated plans. I don't want to dwell on those, pretty minor. And we're building page 9. We start getting to some of the elevations, really start to show the different tones of the material. Again, very earthy, very nature palette, but yet have enough subtle contrast so you can see the different plates, different layering that we've shown you guys before to accentuate a little bit, so that when you're looking looking at this tower is not just a huge mass coming to the ground, right? The materials and the texture really help differentiate the plane. One of the things that we also did, and you've seen some of the kind of blow-up elevations and perspectives later, is we wanted to use the terracotta material. Go back to that a little bit. The baguettes we're talking about, we actually have all the real samples here. This is more of the examples of the baguettes. What we wanted to do is, at the pedestrian level, make sure it's open, as transparent as possible, yet still form a building edge. So pedestrian cross by, walking, they're able to see kind of through the building a little bit. Obviously, seeing the really beautiful lobby that we and motor court there we're installing, as well as kind of around the corner to the promenade along Cherry Creek. So that's when later on you see some of the images having that baguette that comes down. One of the things that we did also was taking the rib panels. It has a little bit, this is not the right color, but it's very similar to the texture we're proposing. I think the spacing is actually a little wider. They're a little bit more custom, so we don't have the exact same. So imagine kind of this module marching up is a solid, mini solid and void, right? So it mimics a little bit more of the brick detailing that you see in Lodo District, and more of a human scale, touch and feel type of feeling. And we kept most, if not a lot of that rib panel right at that 50-foot, 70-foot-ish, more human scale datum, so that the richness and the texture, and people can experience that as you walk and drive by the building. Once we get further up, it becomes more of a smooth panel. And if you guys seen some of the example materials, the pictures that we show, because of the properties of the terracotta, it has a very subtle. So, these 24 by 60-inch panels, as you kind of see it through the kind of the deep plates and planes of the building, you see there very subtle changes in colors and tones. So again, it kind of dials back to the masonry properties, right? But in a larger scale. So when we look at towers, it's a little bit different than a shorter building. It's going to be seen from far away. So in a larger scale, you see that texture and that kind of marbling of that coloration throughout the building. So we like that a lot better than something like a metal panel or whatever that it seems a lot more stoic when you're looking far away. It feels a little more office building and whatnot. So again, tying to the modularity of something from the Gloria campus, something that's larger scale, as well as the lower scale of kind of Lodo District. We talked, and I think Brittany mentioned about the Sky Lounge area on the next slide here. Basically have a little nugget, a little jewel box at the top that showcase that. So that's something that you will be able to see from far away. The very clean glass. Again, we brought the glasses here as well. The more clear glass, we usually do that at the pedestrian level, so you're able to see into the activities inside. And this is a typical residential tower glass. Has a little bit more privacy and a little bit more solar heat gain properties there. And we try to use the very clear glass at the Sky Lounge as well, so that it lights up a little bit differently, it glows a little differently. It reflects a little bit differently during the day and night. So to kind of give it a little bit of contrast at that spot, also highlighted by the kind of building decrease. And we have something like that similar at the ground level. I think there are some images in that slide deck there, where we have that glass box at the deck there, at the pool deck. It also comes down and meets the promenade at grade. Probably one of the renderings that's yeah, on the promenade side. You can kind of see the glass box there. This is the kind of the terracing dog park that's along Spear there. I know that was of interest. Okay, so this is a good shot of that glass element. That basically, it's a similar idea. It's a juxtaposition from the planes and the forms from the tower, but it highlights a special space. We're kind of the lighting condition that Brittany was talking about. I think we're going to be studying that a little bit. I know there were concerns about homeless people and safety as you walk through this promenade. One of the things that we thought is really powerful is to have make sure that there's enough lighting there, but obviously not as intrusive to the neighborhood. We're thinking that this glass box here, and we'll probably add a little bit more screening to it just to get layering, but that could provide a safety beacon, if you would. So when people kind of jog, walk, hang out in this area, they feel safe. And, candidly, if it's too bright, kind of discourage people to really want to sleep there or and whatnot. Obviously, there's other little things that we incorporate in our projects that helps with homeless and kind of loitering situations as well. But having that juxtaposition form and we angle some of the walls there and try to create a little more interest along that path, and also with a lot of rich landscape planters and trees there, we felt like that's going to be a really great space for pedestrians and folks to hang out. Again, I think up high is just the different tones you see here. It's a little bit smoother panel, and that kind of ties back into how we want a lighter top as well, not through just form, but as you get more texture in the bottom and start to clean up, have larger modules as you go up the building, and then at the top you see a little bit more glass there. So that kind of gives you that gradient effect, so that it gets a little bit heavy and form a really nice textural base for the project. Then as you go up, it just feels lighter and lighter, so it kind of reinforces that lighter top. That's a good elevation to look at too. If you look at the picture on the left there, the elevation there, it feels a little bit heavier, especially on the left side, through different materiality and kind of push and pull, you know, in a minor way. It's starting to feel even lighter at the top. That's some of the things that we're trying to do here. Maybe we can go to some of the rendering.
Oh, does it have any?
Oh.
Yeah. You.
Yeah, you kind of scrub some of those. So you can start in that picture in the upper right there. You see some of the projected windows. We changed a lot of the modules to kind of mimic and some of the logo scales format. And some of the detailing that you see in later slides have the different accent colors that we put in within the window frame. The darker projections that you see throughout Lodo. You can see the perforation that we show in the baguettes at the higher photo board on the right side, and it tapers down to more of a pedestrian scale as you move towards Lodo and Cherry Creek. Covers everything. And maybe we can start the video.
Thank you, and pausing that.
Should be about 2 minutes for the video.
Time to get this going. So. Yeah, it's looking a lot better on my screen, sorry. That works.
Show you some of the baguettes and the perforation that we're talking about, and some of the panels above. That's perfect. Glass element on the side, right next to the problem, Cherry Creek. And that recess area that you see, those are all amenity space and activity space. So from afar, on the street level, you'll see people doing yoga, walking their dogs, hanging out, and things like that. So really provide a lot of activities and kind of eyes in the street. Again, we brought some material samples. Also, there's a stone sample here, the column wraps, some of the key elements of the base.
I think we can answer your question first. I'm going to pull up the site plan to talk a little bit about the landscape.
That's sufficient? A little, you want the
That's all.
hardscaping plan? The 7-stage?
I think that was okay. So the stairs that lead up from the promenade will have a gate on it, because that leads up to the deck. Residents, so there'll be some security. Gate at that location. The terraces that are along Sphere, there is no gate, it sort of dead ends down there as they come down from the deck. That's kind of maybe where the dog park might be or something like that. So just another outdoor area for residents to share some outdoor space along Sphere. To the right, or let's call it south of Sphere, that's where the park and landscape is, which there is a fencing around it, but that will be public and open to the public. That kind of summarizes that aspect. And there was also, at the last, we touched on a little bit, right, the last meeting we had was the connection to the Market Street pedestrian activity, and we've worked with landscape about patterns and painting and how that connects up to directly to the entry there. So that sort of emphasized in the landscape drawings about how that connection is being made from the public sidewalk into the.
Yeah, there are openings from Promenade and also Sphere, kind of cutting through the park. Obviously, the gates will be closed after hours or something like that, so people don't loiter and hang out. You know, obviously trying to address the homeless or issue, security issue without, I forgot the words that someone had used, combat architecture or whatever, like a bunch of spiky plans, stuff like that. So we're trying to kind of control that as much as we can. And the grand stairs that come from the mini deck really serves as a connection for the tenants of the building, kind of coming down almost like a mini trailhead if you would, to get down to the pedestrian level to the public, and that obviously will be controlled at night after hours to make sure that people don't loiter in the stairs and things like that. That also takes them to the semi-public public park on the right side there as well. It was missing on the elevations because I think architects tend to not like put a bunch of gates and things, and we're trying to show something graphical on the elevations.
So on the Sphere side where it comes down off that terrace garden, there is a fence or there isn't? I'm a little bit confused there. I'm sorry.
It's a low wall there. It's a tiered wall surface there, but you can't walk out from there. I mean, you can jump over the wall.
Okay.
Walk directly out.
Right.
With a connection to Sphere.
It is a private space, but we plan to have obviously vegetation and things like that. So as you walk by, you see green things going on, people walking their dogs. It's also a really good amenity for the first time, or really many times you walk through the tour, you go into the lobby, and then you have a great window and looking at this step cards. They can use it for different things, theater type of things. So we see a lot of use and activity in that space that helps fortify the pedestrian experience.
Can I ask one more as long as we're answering my question? On the Cherry Creek side, with that glass at the base of the bell tower, which in the elevation was shown as solid, I think you said that you're still studying that a bit.
Yeah.
And the video seemed to show a fairly reflective glass.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what's really envisioned there? Because I'm not feeling like
No, that's a great question. Right before, as Brittany was saying, we were pushing the video till probably a few days before just to get a really good visual aid for you guys. We're looking at that. We noticed things like, hey, that guy really reflects a lot. How do we really dress it up? Because it's an important part for a promenade, the pedestrian experience. So we had already started studying that area between what we noticed until kind of today. A couple of the ideas we thought about was where behind there is the entry drive to the garage and also some loading area. So we don't necessarily want to showcase that. A couple of things we talked about, like what if we create more of architectural art piece of some sort? Some of the ideas that we bounced around with maybe it's a shadow box that, we can kind of glow it a little bit. And then if you guys recall some of the screening element that we're using to hide the utilities on the other side, we could maybe kind of bring down the veil in front of that glass so that it's not as reflective. Maybe that glass is a back painted glass that glows at night. So that kind of gets that soft glow. We don't want it to be so bright where it's just like, blinding everyone, but bright enough to provide a security beacon, something interesting, maybe the kind of screening that we showed in there, they could have custom patterns in there. They come stock with certain, design they already have. We're thinking, how can we do some subtle art that maybe tie back to the bell, maybe tie back to the neighborhood in some way, and introduce that into the screening And then maybe we use that as a veil on this side over the glass and then kind of softly light that. So there's some identity and branding as well as providing something just nice to look at rather than just a glass box coming to the ground. On top of that, maintenance, right? You guys kind of mentioned that kind of last presentation. When things come to the ground, we want to be careful. So we have a lot of planters kind of skirting around the building. Where we don't, we want to be a little more careful on the decorative screen that has some art moments in it that really help highlight that. That should be in our latest condition submit.
Thank you.
But to be clear, it is proposed to be glossed, yeah, correct.
Yeah, the idea is we have glass on the amenity level.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring some of the element down, but I think it may change a little bit because
Depends who you ask in our office.
I think the goal is just to provide a very holistic, clean design so that you have homogeneous materials so that you're not just changing materials all the time. Feels like the building is engaging the pedestrian.
Questions for the applicant?
Thank you. Thank you.
As usual, if we have any others, we'll let you know. But appreciate your presentation. Public comments.
You would like to speak, please feel free to use our hand raise button at the bottom of your screen. I don't see anyone here, so no. We do have a few people online.
Go ahead and move into deliberation.
I'm going to stop sharing so that those joining me online can see you all.
I think the materials are very interesting. I think the adjustments that have been made all look good to me. My biggest things that I have some remaining concerns about really address the pedestrian realm around the base. The stairs that led out to the Cherry Creek Trail with that fence, it's not clear to me that anybody's ever going to go through those. It looks to me like a stair that you can't see where it goes with a gate in front of it that ends up collecting trash. Ends up feeling a little forlorn. So I'm a little concerned about that. Might be worth a little bit of thought on that. I've seen that condition before. Stair that is there, it's kind of a grand stair. There's a fence in front of it. Nobody ever comes through there. It's not inside of anybody from the building, and it becomes a bit of a trash collector. And I appreciate that they're still studying the base of the bell tower. A view into the garage entry isn't necessarily a great pedestrian moment. But again, perhaps as they work at layering that'll turn into something interesting. The one other thing that I noted in the paving, in the hardscape diagram, just to consider, is those driveways along, sorry, I'm trying to get to that piece, which is there. Big packet, this poor little computer has a hard time keeping up. Where the entries are to the motor court and it crosses that sidewalk, I hope several consideration can be given to emphasizing the priority for pedestrians across there. The way it's drawn now, the color scheme at least, it's warning the pedestrians that there's a driveway. And I think best practice is kind of shifting that you're warning drivers that they're entering a pedestrian zone. So I just would emphasize that again. I think this ends up being, we hope, an important link across. And I hope that we actually might see pedestrians there. So, thanks.
Maybe just on that note, it does look from the paving plan that the pedestrian pad is winning. I think it's just a color plan. So it may well be it's just literally a paving color.
Yeah, maybe it really, you know, the sidewalk obviously should remain level across those driveways in terms of best practice now, but again, maybe just shifting the color to emphasize it on automobiles that they are crossing a pedestrian path. Something to consider. Thanks.
I do see a similar, like I said, the stair access to the trail is interesting. We have a similar condition actually over on Platt Street where one of the office buildings that was done there is connected with a large opening and a pretty monumental stair down to the Riverside Trail. It is well utilized by the occupants of the building, and it's managed. You know, part of it is maybe that feeling of a small gate entry, like, you know, relatively small gates, big stairs kind of thing, and just trying to get that balance of monumental, daily, you know, right. In terms of what it is and its frequency of occupation, it does feel on the plan to be quite prominent by virtue of coming forward off the adjacent wall. So I think it's just some integration there in terms of those gates, so let's settle in a little bit more to help with it. One question I forgot to ask, just for clarification, the upper level soffits, so balconies and then the cantilever box condition. What are can you just talk through the soffit conditions for those upper levels and what's going on with the undersides of the box extension and then the balcony?
Well, the underside of the balconies are usually skin colored paint.
Yes,
Yep.
and since that goes out over occupied space, right, there'll have to be some sort of soffit and return there. We probably haven't gotten there yet, but it would be something similar to what's on the cladding system or something along those lines.
There's a lot of cantilevers and extensions, just interesting to understand, you know, looking up that soffit condition as well.
Yeah, the palette will probably be very close to the aluminum colors that's, you know, part of the glass system or some kind of stucco that's a similar color to it.
Yeah.
Soft material.
I do like the one for the wood soffits on the arrival sequence for the vehicle. I think that's going to be nice. You know, we have had some issues locally just with weathering of that wood surface in interesting ways. It tends to use a lot of aluminum wood in those soft conditions, but the warmth of the natural material feels good. Might be something to think about that too.
Yeah, we've done a lot of observation. That looks like wood.
Otherwise, I'm in agreement. I think the massive changes feel good. It feels like it has flying down a little bit at the top. I think there's some simplification that's maybe happened vertically that's helped a little bit too, in terms of the massing to the general massing. And again, I like the terracotta approach. It's a good material solution that balances connection to history with a forward-looking material that's used in a variety of different ways.
I agree, the quality materials. Not too replicative, but still contemporary. I like that terracotta is a very historic material, but it's a contemporary usage of it, which is a great thing, I think, whether that's the intent or not, it feels good there. So I like the subtle refinements of the massing appropriate. They help thin it out, keep it vertical, but would agree with Brittany's condition to provide open lighting, but
Maybe, I don't know if we need to wrap it in, but I'm presuming under that same condition, it would cover this idea of the articulation of that lantern at the street. It just seems like it could be covered as part of that lighting, very transparency, or otherwise at the bottom of the double wide box
on the
trail.
Yeah. The only thing that caught my attention was trying to find the elevation. Where we have the more solid stucco section. Market Street.
So I'm having a hard time hearing you, and I'm sitting next to you.
Is it market or layer?
It's coming down from the elevator. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and maybe it's both, it's on the elevation labeled Market Street. Is where I'm seeing the tall stucco.
Which page of their presentation?
The elevation, it's,
Yeah,
page 10,
sorry.
I think.
Page 9.
There's like, they labeled it 9.
Their page 9, yeah.
Their page 9, it looks like it's just, stucco is just at the very top on Market Street, Jane, and the more solid areas at the terracotta.
Yeah, I think the stucco seam coming down is on page 10.
On Landford.
Okay, so it's just on the landward side where it's the elevator core. That's what you got about that.
I still, though, am not thrilled by the large, solid, kind of tower-like appearance of that solid area, but I also understand to break up massing. Just knowing that that one relates the most closely to the historic district, it feels a little heavy to me, but you know, do I think it's a big enough departure from the mass one scale that's already approved? That was the only area where I was struggling a little bit. But as far as materials themselves, I'm very on board with terracotta. That was my one area of concern that I didn't know whether so. Looking at the rendering of it, I think the page 14 at the end of the street, I think that it doesn't feel as heavy when you look at it from the perspective. I think if you're looking at it in elevation flat, if you don't get the change in plane, it feels less heavy because when you look at it and you have space between the dark terracotta and the light terracotta that's got windows and balconies and glass that kind of breaks that up. So that doesn't make much looking at it in that 3D view. I think it's balanced. I actually think some of those solid sections help with the verticality of it, which was, you know, I know I was speaking quite loudly in some of the mass former context about that requirement in the ED guidelines that it agreed as a vertical tower. And I think that helps that slenderness of it.
I find it's a little relief once having a little bit of simplicity and solidity. And I think it's a pretty good, it's also a nice expression of the logic of the building. It's a side core, no core is on the outside of the building, which is a little unusual. You swing around it. So I think that's a pretty honest expression of the diagram and a little bit of relief in terms of just simple material, solid. Thanks, sir. Okay. I'm sure at some point it was terracotta too. But it is, you know, I think the idea is that it doesn't hit the ground, I think. So that's I think the fact that that material is simple and monolithic and held out from beneath the ground. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and I do the way the lower level street feel how the building is relating to pedestrians. I think it's happy to see the church. I really like the use of the ribbed terracotta at the street level. I think that really does bring that sense of, yeah, on a large panel with a narrow. I guess I'm trying to see for my projects every time they get eat out, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see them use our projects. I think they're cool, so.
Yeah, right. I think it's just a general sensibility to which is not what the terracotta painting can do is the scaling down of the elements that they hit the ground. So they talk about increasing the density in the craft as it gets to the low level. So much
I'm happy to make a motion as recommended by by staff. I move to conditionally approve application number 2022 COA 434 for the Phase 2 design details submitted at 1300 Walnut Street for 4th Special Review District Graphic Guidelines, Historic Urban Edge District in the Lower Downtown Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the condition that the building lighting details be provided.
Second,
Second.
John. Hi. No, that was
Quick.
John is
Rock, paper, scissors, for
Give it to John.
Yeah.
Jim already. helped
Thanks,
out.
Jim.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any witness? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That is it, other than I want Fred to narrate my life, please.
I know.
About penguins, yeah.
I did do a little bit of voiceover work.
You're gonna get the PBS special.
You know the story,
Just
right?
that one. Okay, good.
And I believe. Yeah.
So when I
Come together.
What's that? I thought theater art.